what do I want to do? Where do I want to do? How much do I want to get paid to do this thing I want to do? Yeah. Once you answer those questions, or at least have an idea, it narrows down the pool of jobs you can apply to. To me, the easiest solution is this. You as an interviewer, you need to ask better questions. If you're asking yes or no questions, you're going to get a yes or no answer. So if someone's not answering your question, you're the problem, not the person answering the question. I don't tell them to spray and pray approach where you just send all bunch of applications and then see which one sticks. Like I always take the time to really sit down and think, okay, what do you want to do? Not just for this next job, for 15 years, 10 years, and 5 years. That gives us a better idea of what we want to do next. Once we know that, it's easier to narrow it down and really focus on the companies that you're interested in. I would say common mistakes like a ton of applications, the same resume to 20 different companies. I think that's a big mistake. Yeah, you're being efficient, but you're not being effective.
Welcome back to another episode of the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast. And we are so excited for another week of sharing 2 videos every single week. And we have reached another amazing interview episode with a phenomenal guest. We have Ramone Santillan here with us today. And Ramone is an interview coach and salary negotiation expert at Persuasive Interview. He helps high performers get the confidence they need to ace their interview. Enough said, everybody. And now it's time to lean in because today Ramone is going to be sharing classified interview secrets. He is going to teach us how to escape the recruiter trap. And for the moms that are listening, he's going to tell you how you can actually help your kids get jobs. Welcome to the show, Ramone.
Thank you, Candyce. Happy to be here.
Yes, excited to have you too. So we're going to hop right in because everybody's heard about the applicant tracking system. And we know that about 75% of job applications actually don't even make it to a human due to this applicant tracking system. And another stat that I found very interesting is that 70 to 80% of jobs are never even posted publicly and are filled through networking and referrals. So with that being said, some of our job seekers, they find themselves getting stuck in the application black hole, as we like to call it. So hop right in and give us some tips on the best way to stand out and ensure that the candidate's resume actually reaches the hiring manager.
I think one of the things people really get hung up on is that they need to apply online and that it's really hard to stand out. And truth be told, it's really not that hard to stand out. You just have to take a little bit longer step to someone else who is also applying to the job. For me, what I feel is the best way to reach the hiring manager, get your resume reaches the hiring manager, is to reach out to the hiring manager. How do you do that? You look up the person on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is one of the many places you can go to, but you can actually find them all kinds of ways. When I help someone to help them find a job, I don't tell them to a spray and pray approach where just send all bunch of applications and then see which one sticks. Like I always take the time to really sit down and think, okay, what do you want to do? Not just for this next job, for 15 years, 10 years, and 5 years. That gives us a better idea of what we want to do next. Once we know that, it's easier to narrow it down and really focus on the companies that you're interested in. And that's how you can actually spend the time to do the research on who the hiring manager is, who works there, what kind of skills they need, and those kind of things that most people don't take the time to really research and learn before they apply. They just send applications and hope that one of them calls them back.
Yeah,
I don't like to do that. I want to make sure that we take the time, instead of making 1,000 applications, maybe we just do 5 really good applications and take the time to work our way through those applications.
No, I think that's an excellent point. And you are absolutely right. The spray and pray approach does not work. It gets you volume, but it doesn't get you quality and substance. And I can remember even being back in my hiring days or when I would call and screen applicants and I would say, hey, you applied for this job, and they couldn't even remember which role I was talking about because they just had applied to so many jobs. So I agree that volume is key at 5-Minute Career Hack. Quality is key. And I think volume matters as well, because at 5-Minute Career Hack, we, if you really want to get 3 job offers, you got to apply for about 30 jobs. And connecting it to what I'm hearing you say is that's 30 quality applications where you've done the work, the pre-work, to make sure that your resume fits the role, to find out more about the organization, and also to find out exactly who you need to be talking to. So that requires a little bit of a slowdown. Why do you think that people don't take the time to take those steps?
Because they think that maybe they're going to waste their time because they're going to get, best case scenario, a rejection email. Worst case scenario, they're going to get ghosted. And I say, well, yeah, maybe that's going to happen. But again, if we really focus on the right companies and then determine if those companies are the right ones for you too, uh, we get a smaller list. So even 30 applications to me, it feels like a lot of applications. Yeah, you do want to get obviously several applications out there. You can't just say, well, I'm going to send one application, I'm going to get one job offer, and that's it. Like that's not how it works. You could get lucky, and we've done it before, but we don't want to rely on luck. We want to rely on a system, a proven system that works and gives us results. Yes. So yeah, I don't think you should send a lot of applications. You should send quality applications. But again, this is already like 2 or 3 steps ahead. The first thing you need to do is sit down and think, what do I want to do? Where do I want to do it? How do I want to be doing it? What do I want to be called while doing this thing? How much do I want to get paid to do this thing I want to do? Yeah. Once you answer those questions, or at least have an idea, it narrows down the pool of jobs you can apply to. And then you can think, okay, well, let me focus on these jobs, whether it's an industry, location, even part of the town where you're in. So maybe you don't want to have a commute and you want to do work from home, hybrid, or you want to go to the office. Not every job gives you those things. So focus on those jobs that you really want.
Yes, yes. You're exactly right about, the pre-steps of identifying what is the dream role and where do we not even just the job that you want to have, but who do you want to be at that job? Where do you want it to be? You've got to do that so you can have alignment in the companies that you are applying for. And I agree as well. Luck is not a strategy. We say in corporate America, hope is not a strategy. Luck is not a strategy. You've got to be strategic and intentional when applying for these jobs and researching these companies, but even more importantly, the way that we're networking to get to that hiring manager. Because remember, before you get there, you got to pass the applicant tracking system. So the resume is important, and we're going to get into, because I know I want to talk, because I'm very interested and intrigued about the neurodivergent candidate and how we can help them be successful. But share any additional tips and insight on how does that resume get past the applicant tracking system? What are maybe some common mistakes that you see made there? And maybe a couple of hacks that people who struggle to or scared to get ghosted or always getting ghosted and struggle to get their application through. What are a couple common mistakes you see and what are some solutions to those?
I would say common mistakes like a ton of applications, the same resume to 20 different companies. I think that's a big mistake. Yeah, you're being efficient, but you're not being effective. What one thing I hate is LinkedIn's quick apply button, because people come to me and they said apply to 100 jobs, and I say how do you do that in 1 week? Like this, I don't know how to do that. And they said, well, yeah, I did quick apply, so I just quick apply 100 times and applied to 100 jobs. I haven't gotten any interviews, much less offers, obviously. And I always say, well, you shouldn't have applied to 100 jobs. A lot of my clients, the majority of my clients are college students looking for a co-op or an internship or their first job out of college. And most of these guys and girls, they're, 21, 22, 23. I'm 44. So for easy math, I'm twice their age, right? And they tell me that they applied to 100 jobs in 1 semester. The record, I think it was like 435 jobs in a semester, and they didn't get any single interviews. And to me, it's mind-blowing because, again, for easy math, I'm twice their age. I haven't applied to 100 jobs in my life. So when someone tells me they applied to 200 jobs in a semester and they didn't get any interviews, to me that's like, well, what's wrong with the system? What's wrong with your process? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times is that like they do the quick apply and then just send the same profile, same resume to 100, 200, 250, 450 different job applications. And so, to me, that's a problem. So what do I recommend? I recommend that, again, narrow down your focus. And a lot of people get scared when we say that because they say, well, that's less jobs I can apply to. My career center says to apply to 75 jobs before they even schedule some more time with me to help me out. And I said, well, you shouldn't have to apply to 75 jobs to figure out what's wrong. Or the advice is that we'll try harder. So how can I try harder when it's already not working? So again, narrow it down. Focus on what you really want to do. That's the first step. Second step, like I mentioned, you would try to connect with people at those companies. Nowadays, it's super easy to do. You can do it through LinkedIn. You can do it through social media, GitHub, Discord, that kind of stuff. Even LinkedIn has a video chat option on there once you connect with someone. So I always recommend people, students especially, connect with people at the companies you're interested in. Does that guarantee a job? No, it doesn't guarantee a job. But especially as a student, you will know exactly what those companies are looking for, so you can get ready for those interviews, or even prepare yourself for maybe you're not ready for that job yet. But if you follow that advice, say get this class, do this project, put this on your resume, maybe for the next time around that you're looking for a job, you'll be ready. We see a lot of success stories with that with the clients I work with. So yeah, maybe they don't get the job at Apple, at Facebook, at Google this time around, but they get that, use that advice, apply it, and the next time around they're looking for a job, they get that interview and they get that offer. Yeah. So that's the two things I would recommend there to start off with.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I definitely, I want to underscore your point around, you got to do the work at least once that first time, because it gets a little challenging. And probably why people don't do it is because, oh, I got to sit down and I got to research and then I got to change my resume up. I got to send out the DMs. You got to start somewhere. So start doing the work now. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And tailoring your resume takes less time. Networking with people takes less time. And it gets you to those quality job boards faster, and quality job positions, the positions that you're looking for, it gets you there faster. So tailor your resume. I 100% agree. Go ahead. You're going to say something else?
One thing I would recommend, especially for college students, a lot of times college students come to me and they say, well, I need to find more jobs to apply to. Again, because they've applied to 450 jobs in 2 months. And I would say, and they say, well, yeah, I need to go to LinkedIn and find jobs there. I need to go Indeed, these other job search portals. And I always tell them that, yeah, we can do that. We can look for jobs there. But your job as a college student is probably going to come from your schools, your colleges, job search portal. So a lot of these colleges have Handshake. They have Career Connect. And I always tell them, okay, we can go to LinkedIn and apply to a job there. The problem with LinkedIn is that everyone in the world has access to apply to that particular job. Like I can apply to a job in computer science and I don't know how to code. So all of a sudden I become competition. I muddy the waters basically for those applicants that are qualified if I go through LinkedIn. But if a college student goes to the job posted in their Career Connect for their school or their Handshake for their school, their only competition theoretically are only those other college students from their college. So again, the competition goes from the whole world, literally everyone can apply, to maybe a couple hundred students that are applying for that particular job. Yeah. So I always tell them, don't look for more jobs to apply to. See the ones that are just for you, because we know those jobs at that Career Connect Handshake portal are for the students from that college. We know they're recruiting from there. Where on LinkedIn, yeah, there might be a job you might be qualified for, but maybe that company doesn't recruit from your school. So just by seeing your school name, they'll say, we don't want this person because we don't recruit from there. But for Career Connect Handshake, they pay to be on your school's job portal. So I would say focus on those jobs first.
Yeah, excellent advice, because LinkedIn is an amazing resource, but it's not the only resource. And to your point, if we're looking to narrow down to the job that's right for you, you have to use more of your resources. I think LinkedIn we know that majority of recruiters are there. However, it's not just for applying for jobs. It's also where you apply for the job on maybe Handshake and the other apps that are available at your school, but then you go to LinkedIn to make the connection with the person. Right. Your content that appeals to the position, that appeals to the hiring manager, the key decision makers that are going to bring you in. So I think it's like having an effective use of the tools, not putting your eggs in one basket, but make sure the tools that work best for you for where you are, especially for a college student, you have resources that you're paying for, right? You're paying for.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Resources that are at your disposal. So no, love that. And I want to transition because you've got an expertise in a certain client that I want to use some space talking about, and that's the neurodivergent candidate. And this is, I think what you're going to share here is not just for the neurodivergent candidate, but it's also for the interviewer who is interviewing this candidate. And so what I've been able to learn since our conversation is that about 15 to 20% of the world's population is neurodivergent. And only 39% of hiring managers actually feel comfortable interviewing these candidates. So talk to us a little bit more about, neurodivergency. And for these candidates, what's an interview strategy that they can use to flip the script in their favor?
Yeah, I focus my practice on working with people who are neurodivergent. You know, I'm going to make generalizations here because like most people who are neurodivergent or who have dealt with someone who's neurodivergent, they will tell you once you met someone, in this case, with autism, you've met one person with autism. You can't say everyone with autism or everyone with whatever other ADHD or whatever is like this. Like, no, these are generalizations we can make. And I can, when I work with someone, I customize my program for that specific person. So, okay. So people who are on the autism spectrum, for example, one thing that they struggle with, again, making generalizations here, is that sometimes they take things very literal. So when they ask someone who might be on the spectrum, and even neurotypical candidates too, they ask something like, "Do you have experience working in a team?" Someone who's on the spectrum will say yes, because the question is a yes or no question, right? Like, do you have experience? Yes, I do. No, I don't. That's really the answer, right? Um, Neurotypical candidates might have an easier time realizing, like, oh yeah, like what they're really asking me is to give them an example of when I work with the team. So that's my advice for people who are interviewing, who are interviewers. And again, this other thing too, you can't tell if someone's on the spectrum or not, right? You can't. Like, someone has to tell you. There might be signs, but again, even then, you're assuming, and you don't want to assume anything. Right. So for interviewers, there's a lot of these programs that tell people, how to be more open to hiring neurodivergent candidates on something. Like, that's great. That's good that people are doing that right now. To me, the easiest solution is this: you as an interviewer, you need to ask better questions. If you're asking yes or no questions, you're going to get a yes or no answer. So if someone's not answering your question, you're the problem, not the person answering the question. If you're having trouble communicating, then you're the problem, not the other person. So make sure when you're asking questions, forget about the neurodivergent, neurotypical candidates. When you're asking questions, make sure you're asking the right question. What are you asking? Are you asking yes or no questions, or you want an example? So instead of saying, "Do you have experience working in a team?" you should ask, "Can you tell me an example when you worked in a team?"
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
So I think that would solve a lot of the problems right there.
Yeah.
It gives everyone a level playing field if you ask the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great call out. If every recruiter and or hiring decision maker pulled out their interview guides right now and just took a look at it to see, is this a thorough enough question that no matter if the candidate is on the spectrum or not, are they going to understand the question? I think that's a good exercise following what you said. And then also, again, it allows for someone to give a thorough answer when there's a thorough question being posed. And then I think, neurodivergent or not, sometimes because that person may not have experience interviewing, the interviewer, and I can say this for myself as a former interviewer for jobs, I interview podcasts now, but sometimes they don't get it on the first try. And you have to go in and ask a second probing question. And I think that's totally okay. I don't think asking that second probing question means that the person just didn't get it. But sometimes you have to come back and do a follow up so you can get the rest of the answer. And I think we've got to normalize that.
I think we need to have better interviewers.
Yeah.
And on the interviewee side, so the candidate applying for the job, I was one strategy that works really well for my clients is telling them, okay, how do you want to be seen in this interview? When you leave the room, when you finish that Zoom call, the Teams meeting, how do you want people to think of you? And when we go through that exercise, it gives them a better idea of how they want to sound and the answers they want to give, the story they want to tell. So yeah, I'm not saying like, okay, interviewers need to ask better questions, problem solved. That will help a lot, right? But on the interviewee side, the side we can work on, we can fix that right now. I always tell people, okay, let's do this exercise. How do you want to be seen when you finish that call? When you leave that room, what do you want people to think of you? And usually that's this is how I want to be seen. Someone who's dedicated, someone who's smart, hardworking, whatever those adjectives may be. And they have a better idea. Okay, this is how I want to sound. So let me sound like that. Let me give those answers. The person who sounds hardworking, dedicated, blah, 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 this is how they would sound. So let me do that. And that works really well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you're describing, what I think a lot of people miss in interviews or just the job search as well, and that's practice. Uh, you're not going to just show up to an interview answering these questions for the first time and get it all right. You get better at interviewing by practicing. Sometimes that practice comes during an interview, but I always tell clients, and I'm sure we recorded several podcasts about it, and it's everywhere 5 Minute Career Hack has probably spoken, is turn the camera on and practice. So where Ramon is posting great questions, these are questions that you practice answering. So when you show up to that interview, it's not your first time saying it. I think another thing that I thought about while you were talking too was, people may be thinking like, well, is that the only question or how do I practice? A good rule of thumb that I like to give out in terms of interviews is, think about what you've accomplished, and especially for college students in your college career, your first jobs, for those that are more seasoned along your career, what's been some of those top accomplishments or top hurdles that you've been able to overcome? And then think about how you did that, who and what you learned and how you've been able to apply that. If you can get that in your mind and you just have that written, practice just talking about that, whatever that interview question that somebody asks you, you usually can draw from one of those experiences that you practice or that you took inventory of before the interview.
Yeah, one thing back in the day, back in the old days in the 1990s, what I used to do for preparing my interviews, I would get in front of the mirror. That was advice: get in front of the mirror and practice. Later on, we have our phones and we can record.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do it on this computer. I'll record myself. But the first thing I do, I actually record myself looking away or with the phone facing down. So it just records my voice because I want to make sure, at least in my case, that I sound clear, that I don't talk too fast. That's one of my things where I talk, when I get excited, I talk really fast.
Yeah.
So I try to pause myself, slow myself down and practice. And the advice I give people with this is you can do it with the mirror, you can do it with your phone, whatever. But I always tell them, review what you said, listen to what you said, be honest with yourself, but don't be critical. A lot of times when we go over what we recorded or what we said or what we wrote, it's like, no, this is stupid, sounds dumb, you sound like this, I sound like that. And that's being critical, right? You don't want to be critical. You want to be honest.
Yeah.
For example, me, I could be honest and say, you know what? I started speeding up here. I have to keep an eye on that. So I can slow down.
Yeah.
Or, this one, the story sounds a little bit boring. Maybe I could change it a little bit to where it sounds more exciting. Or, hey, this sounds really good. Let me make sure I keep this as part of my answer. So that's being honest with myself. Being critical again, it's like, well, that sounds stupid. I'm so dumb. I can't do any of this. And you kind of spiral. You don't want to do that. Be honest with yourself. Don't be critical when you're practicing. And the other advice I would give people is practice so much that you can improvise. A lot of people say, well, they're really good at interviewing or giving speeches or whatever it is. They're good because maybe they have some natural talent that came with it, right? And that's fine. But the reason that they're really, really good is because they practice.
Yeah.
And then when you practice so much, when they throw you some crazy question that you didn't even think about, that you didn't practice for, then you can improvise because you've practiced so much, you can improvise.
Yeah. Yeah. Practice absolutely builds confidence. It's, you can apply this really to interviewing, or you can apply it to things that you're doing daily in life. Even when you get on the job, you have to practice being successful at that job. And absolutely, when you're practicing, it does not serve you to be hard on yourself. I like to say, be aware, but don't judge. So you're aware where you have opportunities and where you need to improve. Use that as information on what you need to do in your next practice session. So I love that and 100% agree. So I know inside of Persuasive Interview, you also have something that you like to talk about with your candidates called the Pantry Experience, because we're talking again to college students, but also talking to the broader job seeking network. So tell us about what is that Pantry Experiment that people can glean from, and how does that apply to job searching and career success?
So, a lot of times when you're looking for a job, there's, if you go to your friends and say, I'm looking for a job, your neighbors, your parents, they'll say, well, there's a balance on jobs. Go to McDonald's. They're always hired, right? And you're like, well, that's great. But my degree is in computer science or, engineering or something. Like, I don't want to get a job at McDonald's. Nothing wrong with those jobs, but that's not what I'm qualified for, right? I have a college degree. I'm looking for a different kind of job. So when I was looking for a job when I was in college, I kind of was overwhelmed with all the jobs I could apply to. But at the same time, I didn't know what jobs to apply to because I just didn't know, right? So what I did, I was at my parents' house visiting for Christmas break. And I said, okay, well, I need to figure out this job situation thing. And what I did is I opened the pantry at our house. And I took a can of corn and I turned it around. It's like, what's the company? So the company says here, the brand name is this, but which is the real company that owns this brand? And I turned it around and it said like Heinz, for example. I said, oh, I bet my background's in accounting, so I was looking for accounting jobs. So Heinz probably needs accountants, right? So I said, I wrote it down. I'm going to look for jobs at Heinz. Grab another can, and this one says HEB. HEB is here, a grocery store in Texas, very famous. It's like, oh yeah, they probably need accountants. So I wrote that one down, so on and so forth. And I did that exercise, and I went for those companies that needed accountants. The recommendation I make to my clients is you can go to your pantry and do that if you're interested. Another thing that can work, especially for majors with more technical, like engineers, sit down at your computer, and what's around your computer? Well, I have these AirPods. Who makes AirPods? Oh, Apple. Okay, yeah, Apple probably, hires people like me. What else do I have? Oh, there's this, pen. Like, oh, okay, well, who makes this pen? Oh, okay, well, let me go check them out. Oh, what about this calculator? Oh, Sharp. Yeah, maybe I should go see if they're looking for someone like me. So that's kind of what I call a pantry experiment. Because again, instead of just looking for this mysterious magical job out there, you kind of narrowed it down and say, okay, here's Tabasco sauce. I wonder if they hire computer science. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Let me go check their website and see if that's the case. It helps narrow down things, makes it easier instead of being overwhelmed with all the jobs in the world that you could get.
Yes. First off, before I even highlight anything you said, I just want to first note that I am super impressed, one, that you have a calculator on your desk. Most of us are pulling up. So pulling up the calculator, I'm like, whoa, that is good. And just cherry on top with the Tabasco sauce. Had to point that out. But I think it's an excellent point around the things that are right in front of you. A lot of times we feel stuck in the job search because we're going out and seeking in places and not looking at what's right in front of us. And I think that is an excellent takeaway to observe your current and immediate environment. Open your eyes and look right around at where you are. And that's go back, and to your point at the beginning of the episode, now go to those organizations on LinkedIn or see if they have jobs on your college job boards and start applying for those jobs based on what you see right in front of you. That was such a gem and such a nugget. I appreciate it.
And I think it's cool too because obviously if you have one product in front of you of a company, you probably support that company. You probably think it's cool, like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to work for Apple, and because I have Apple products here, so maybe I should look for a job there. Like, hey, you know what? I had this calculator from Sharp. I'd like the product, because I have it here, or Tabasco for that matter. It'll be cool to work there. Obviously I support the company because I bought it. Let me see if they have a job. Maybe I can work there.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Ramon, you shared so many good, and you just closed us out with that, and that was phenomenal. That example that I think anybody, no matter what age group, no matter what kind of job they are looking for, they are going to be able to apply the pantry experiment to their work. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your amazing expertise. As we do with all of our clients, before we wrap up, we ask that you share your final 5 words. So share with us, what are your final 5 words? It can be a phrase or it could just be 5 individual words. What would you like to share with the audience?
One thing I always tell my clients when I start working with them, by the time they get to me, they're usually their self-esteem is down because they've applied to several hundred jobs and they haven't even gotten a response. Or maybe they go to an interview, they fare really well, about, and then they get ghosted. So their self-esteem is down. They feel like they've been spinning their wheels for, couple of semesters in school. Their graduation is looming, or that requirement, that internship co-op requirement that they need to graduate is coming up. And they're stressed out. Their parents are obviously stressed out. And one thing I always tell them is, we will get there.
Mm.
So, sometimes they just need to know that with the right guidance, they'll get there. And that's my promise to them. Like, I have 100% success rate with my clients because I work with them until they get the job, not a job, the job. So again, I always start my conversation with people is, we will get there.
Yes, love it. We're going to get there. I love that. I don't know if I didn't know it was possible to drop the mic twice, but you did. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with you. Let everybody know, how can they get in touch with you at Persuasive Interview? Where can they find you online?
They could go to my website, persuasiveinterview.com. They can also look me up on LinkedIn. You can go to linkedin.com/in/interview coach. You can find me there, or you can find me also on LinkedIn, or just on your Google, Persuasive Interview or Ramon Santillan. You'll find a lot of articles, a lot of the podcast episodes I've been featured on, a lot of newspapers that quoted my work. Again, you can find me out there.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Well, we look forward to connecting with you. And thank you again for joining the 5 Minute Career Hack Podcast. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Candice.
Thank you.